On today's episode, your women's reigning champion of TMX, Corinna Coffin.
This is the world's toughest podcast. Welcome to the world's toughest podcast, where we talk about any obstacle course race you'd like, as long as that's world's toughest mudder. Each week we talk to members of the WTM community and share stories of success and failure in the single greatest event in OCR. My name is Will Hicks, and this is the world's toughest podcast.
Welcome back to World's Toughest Podcast. Thank you for listening. You are listening to the number one rated obstacle course racing podcast in the world because of listeners like you leaving ratings and reviews on Apple Podcasts. Thank you very much. Welcome to all of our brand new listeners that just heard about the show at Tough Mudder, New Orleans. I am thrilled you are listening. Welcome. On today's show, we talk with Corinna Coffin, the reigning TMX champion.
Coffin, strong to the finish, and she is the 2017 Tough Mudder X World Champ.
The TMX race series kicks off this weekend at TMX Sacramento. Corinna won the inaugural 1 mile race last year, beating Cassidy Watton by 11 seconds. Great race. It was televised on CBS. Corinna lets us know what to expect and share some tips for those competing at TMX this year for the very first time. Before we start, you can email me at willhicks@gmail.com. You can find us on Instagram at World's Toughest Podcast and on Twitter at Toughest Podcast. And you can sign up to our weekly-ish newsletter by texting the word tough to the number 22828. That's tough to the number 22828. Subscribing to the newsletter will also sign you up to win a free pair of Merrell trail running shoes. More on the newsletter in a minute. If you'd like to be a part of the show, you have two options. The easiest is to leave a review on Apple Podcasts. That's the purple app on your iPhone, and I will read it on a future episode. I talked to someone this week who said, I'd love to leave a review, but I listen on Android. You might listen on Spotify. How can I leave a review? And I told him you can do it on your computer through iTunes, or one guy told me he borrowed his girlfriend's phone and left a review from her account. So either way, I appreciate the support. I know it takes a couple minutes to do it, and I appreciate it. So one way you can be a part of the show is by leaving a review. Another way, and this is the newest way, is through our new promotion with Merrell called Merrell Mudder Moments. If you'd like to be a guest on World's Toughest Podcast, you can win World's Toughest Mudder, like Ray Coble.
5 stars.
Or win TMX, like Hunter McIntyre.
Pretty gosh darn good.
Or like Corinna Coffin. Or you can email me at worldstoughestpodcast@gmail.com with MMM in the subject line. MMM for Merrell Mudder Moments. In the body of the email, share your Merrell Mudder moment from Tough Mudder. Maybe you want to nominate someone who really helped you or inspired you out on the course. Maybe it was this past weekend at Tough Mudder New Orleans, or maybe it was at World's Toughest Mudder last year. When you nominate someone else, if they win, you will both receive a free pair of Merrell trail running shoes and an appearance on World's Toughest Podcast. I am already receiving submissions. World's Toughest Podcast@gmail.com with MMM in the subject line. And then just tell your story in the email. Let's talk some Tough Mudder news. The biggest news of last week was Toughest Mudder West is back on the menu, boys. A couple weeks ago, we talked at length about what Tough Mudder's options were for rescheduling Toughest Mudder West. We laid out 9 options they had, 7 of which were bad. The 2 options that could work were Las Vegas on October 21st or NorCal on October 7th. Neither were ideal, and we talked about why in that episode. It's the Toughest Mudder West recap episode with Heather Heaton, Season 2, Episode 12, number 70 overall. So in that episode, we said Vegas or NorCal were their two best options. On Friday last week, Team HQ announced Toughest Mudder West will be held on October 7th at the NorCal venue. And I don't want to say I told you so, but someone told you so. They also announced something else we said might happen. Toughest Mudder West will be a daytime Toughest Mudder. Start time will be at 8 a.m. The usual start time for Toughest Mudder is 12 a.m. All other rules and pricing will be the same as the other Toughest Mudder races this year. The daytime start is going to change a lot about the race. And I talked about this when news first leaked out last week on our Twitter account, twitter.com/toughestpodcast. The biggest difference, well, the two biggest differences. One, no sleep deprivation. 8 a.m. is a pretty regular start time for an OCR race. And two, no wetsuit required. Last year, almost every toughest was cold enough that you had to wear a wetsuit or you would get hypothermic. Philly and the UK were downright frosty. Whistler had snow on the ground. Toughest Mudder West this year will be run through the heat of the day. So those are some pretty big differences that the other Toughest Mudders will not have. Another big difference, the two crowds. The first crowd will be the crowd of people signing up for this one. The perception's going to be that since the West race will be during the day, it will be the easiest Toughest Mudder. And weather-wise, that's probably true, but I promise you, TMHQ will ramp up the difficulty in other ways, whether it's with elevation or obstacle difficulty or penalty lap distances. Toughest Mudder West will not be easy. But because it's daytime, a lot of people, especially first-timers, will think, well, shoot, if it's all the same, I'm going to do the daytime one. So there will be a crowd participating. Last year, 883 people ran Toughest Mudder Chicago. That was the highest attended toughest of 2018. I think Toughest Mudder West will have over 1,000 people. The second crowd, that's the first crowd I mentioned. The first crowd will be the crowd of people signing up. The second crowd that's going to affect Toughest Mudder West will be the Sunday Fun Day crowd. Toughest Mudder West will start at 8 a.m. on Sunday. The regular Tough Mudder waves will start shortly after. So starting on your second lap of Toughest Mudder, you will be sharing the course with all the Tough Mudder full, half, and 5K runners. Team HQ has said they will set up priority bypass lanes at the obstacles for toughest racers to prevent backup at the obstacles. So hopefully that's not a big factor, but they're going to be out there. It's going to be something. So that was Friday. The news of that broke on Friday last week. All day online Friday. Yay! Team HQ heard our plea. Tough Mudder's the best. Yay! And then the season opened on Saturday at Tough Mudder New Orleans. And after that, it was just boo. 5-mile loops are the worst. Where is this obstacle that I like the best? People were not generally excited after Tough Mudder New Orleans on Saturday. But people, please, let's take a breath. Remember how excited you were on Friday? Saturday was the next day. Let's all breathe and relax. And remember, New Orleans is just one event in a long season of events. We will all be okay. Yes, there was no Arctic enema at Tough Mudder New Orleans. And yes, Funky Monkey at New Orleans was a pretty big misstep by TMHQ. The course map for New Orleans had Funky Monkey written on it. So some of us thought, I wonder if by Funky Monkey they mean Funky Monkey the Revolution with the wheels, or Funky Monkey 2.0 with the trapeze bar and the horizontal pole. Nobody thought they meant the 2011 version of Funky Monkey, the 0.5 version with monkey bars that's just a flat set of monkey bars, like the playground at your kid's school. When I started 6 years ago, Funky Monkey was a set of monkey bars going uphill to a point, and then monkey bars going downhill to the exit. And it was over water. Funky Monkey this weekend was just a flat set of monkey bars over some padding on the ground. And the worst part is they had signage at Funky Monkey indicating that this was a vault obstacle. No, it is not. No one voted for plain, boring, junky monkey. It wasn't on the list, and it definitely did not win. So I am calling shenanigans on Tough Mudder New Orleans Funky Monkey. Shenanigans, TMHQ. So New Orleans was not perfect. There were some positives, though. They have done away with bibs and the little pins that you use to secure those bibs to your shirt that would tear up your shirt and then tear up your chest on Kiss of Mud, in favor of wristbands and a sticker for your chest. So basically wristbands. Tough Mudder is good at making mid-course corrections as needed. I've talked about the T-shirt situation from a few years ago. A few years ago, Team HQ started the year saying, we're not doing finisher shirts anymore. So first couple of events, no shirts. And there was an outcry from the community. And they brought them back quickly and mailed shirts to the people who had run events during the 2 or 3 weeks when they weren't passing them out. And Team HQ owned it. They said, we made a mistake, we heard you, we're changing it. They have done so many things right for so many years in a row that they've earned the right to take the time to make a correction or to tweak some things. Tough Mudder, Team HQ, they watch the boards. They see your comments. This weekend in Sacramento and Arizona and England, I expect things to be different than New Orleans. It might take a few weeks for a few more events to pass before, all the kinks are worked out, everything's smoothed out for 2018. But let's all take a deep breath. We're going to be okay. Speaking of New Orleans, did you stop by the Merrell tent at Tough Mudder New Orleans? Did you see the promotion for World's Toughest Podcast? Merrell had an 8.5 by 11 inch ad for World's Toughest Podcast prominently displayed with the All Out Crush 2.0s at New Orleans. It should be at every Tough Mudder this year. Well, every Tough Mudder that Merrell is at. At your next Tough Mudder, go to the Merrell tent and take your picture with our World's Toughest Podcast logo and send it to me, willhicks@gmail.com. Or better yet, post it on Instagram and tag us at World's Toughest Podcast and at Merrell. Let me know you saw it. And try out the new All Out Crush 2.0s while you're there. They are sexy. I mentioned the World's Toughest newsletter a few minutes ago. You can subscribe by texting the word tough to the number 22828. You can do it right now. Text tough to the number 22828 while you're listening. Last year, at the end of season 1 of the podcast, before season 2 started, I was posting a new newsletter weekly. Once we came back for season 2, I just posted weekly. I put a lot of work into pictures and formatting and links and the whole deal when I was doing it. And it was great, but once the show started up, I just didn't have time to make a good podcast and a good newsletter at the same time. So I just didn't write the newsletter for a few months. But we're back, baby. Here's how we are going to do both of them now. A couple weeks ago, I made a deal with my newsletter subscribers. I would spend my creative energy on the podcast and send out a more casual text-only email with some thoughts to the newsletter subscribers. It's literally me typing on my phone when I have some downtime somewhere and then shooting that out to anyone who wants to subscribe. The subscribers get extra information, and I am able to ask them questions and bounce ideas and thoughts for the next episode off of them. If you'd like to subscribe, text TOUGH to the number 22828. One of the things I asked the subscribers about this week was the recent disqualification from last year's World's Toughest Mudder. I asked my newsletter folks, hey guys, this is the deal. Should I talk about this on the show or not? What do you think? And I heard it from them. I heard it from you. All over the spectrum, in fact, from don't do it, it's a dead horse, they've been bad-mouthed enough, to, yeah, you need to talk about it. It's a legitimate news story. It's a thing that happened. You can't ignore it. So I was kind of hoping everyone would say the same thing, whether it's one thing or the other, and make the decision for me, but no such luck. So thank you for your honest opinions. I appreciate them. Here's what I want to say about the disqualification. I'm not going to badmouth anyone. What happened is a runner who got a 50-mile brown bib at World's Toughest 2017 had very inconsistent chip times and a lot of missed timing mats over the 24 hours. The speculation was that course cutting was the only way that this could happen. And a few members of the community noticed this on the results page and went to Team HQ back in November and said, what are you going to do about this? And they heard nothing back from Tough Mudder. So then the information was taken public online, and it just got ugly. Good people that felt strongly, accusations from one group of people, and defensiveness from another group. It just got ugly. And last week, Team HQ announced that the runner in question's 2017 WTM results will be disqualified, and they will not be allowed to run in future competitive Tough Mudder races. And that's a hard punishment. I'm not here to attack someone or even to defend them, but I know that is a hard punishment. I haven't talked with the runner since Team HQ made their announcement, but I know I have listeners that do, and if they want to come on the show and say, hey, this is what happened, I am happy to talk with them. I will ask some uncomfortable questions, and it won't all be puppy dogs and sunshine, but if they would like a chance to tell their side of the story, I am happy to talk. Last week was Tough Mudder New Orleans. We've already talked about that. This week, there are 3 Tough Mudder events happening worldwide. Tough Mudder Arizona, Tough Mudder Sacramento, and Tough Mudder UK, East London. Tough Mudder Arizona will be a good course. It's a new venue, but it is still flat and fast. You can see the course map on our Facebook page, facebook.com/World's Toughest Pod. Cassie Harris lives locally, and that's kind of her Tough Mudder. John Hobson will be there as well. They will be passing out strips of San Francisco Giants cloth in honor of Jen Golick. We talked about Jen last week. She was a member of the Tough Mudder community who was killed in the shooting in Yountville last week. She was also a big Giants fan. If you don't know what we're talking about, or if this is all news to you, go check out last week's episode with Francis Lackner. We talk about what happened with Jen at the beginning of the episode. So that's Tough Mudder, Arizona. Sacramento was Jen's home course. She was going to run it with her team, Team Muddy Knuckles 2.0. Jen had also convinced her husband to finally run a Tough Mudder with her. They will all be out there running together in Jen's memory. There will be San Francisco Giants cloth to honor her, and there will be a moment of silence at the start line in her memory. They are still gathering funds for Jen's 8-year-old daughter and her husband of 18 years on GoFundMe. You can find a link to the GoFundMe at our Facebook page, facebook.com/worldstoughestpod. Carlo Piscatello from the Piss and Cock Show will be at Sacramento running the Instagram page for World's Toughest Podcast. You can follow the action on Instagram at World's Toughest Podcast. And follow Carlo at Carlo_with_no_S. Carlo with no S. Carlo_with_no_S. Great username, Carlo. Carlo has a YouTube show about Tough Mudder with Josh Cox.
Two big stories broke like Thursday, Friday or so in the Tough Mudder community. The good news is they rescheduled America's Toughest Mudder West for Sonoma.
Awesome!
So our backyard.
That is great
our
news!
Backyard race. I'm so excited about that.
The only thing that would mess that up is if they chose to do it in the daytime. But other than that, I'm pretty, that's great news.
You can find a link on our Facebook page. On Sunday, Sacramento will host the first of 3 TMX races this year. We're going to do a deep dive into TMX with our guest this week, women's reigning TMX champion, Corinna Coffin. We'll talk with Corinna in a few minutes. Sacramento will also be the first Tough Mudder 5K of the year. Last year, Team HQ did a pilot run of the 5K in Nashville. And one of the thoughts behind it, or at least part of the marketing behind it, was Tough Mudder with no mud. Tough Mudder's cousin in the city. It was an obstacle course race that you could do in a city or a big park downtown, but it looks like they've decided to go in a more diet Tough Mudder direction this year. All of the U.S.-based 5Ks are at the same venue as Tough Mudder Fulls and Tough Mudder Half. And that's fine, but what makes it interesting is that the UK is sticking to the 5K in the city plan. This weekend at East London Stratford, you can run the 5K on Friday or Saturday. You can see their course map on our Facebook page. I thought the Friday night or Saturday thing was a typo when I saw it, so I talked to one of our UK listeners, Ian K. Ian has helped me out in the past with information and kind of helped me keep track of what's going on in the UK with Tough Mudder. Ian brought me up to speed on what they're doing with the 5K in the UK. They're sticking with the Tough Mudder in the city plan with food trucks and like a party festival area and live music, which isn't a new thing. Lots of races try to do that. They're marketing it as come run a 5K after work and hang out with your mates after. And I think it's smart. I think Tough Mudder could do the exact same thing in the U.S., in the big cities. They could do, in San Diego, they could do the 5K on a Friday night at Balboa Park, and then they could do the half and the full, out in the boondocks where they always do it on a different weekend. If you're running the 5K in London this weekend, let me know how it goes. willhicks@gmail.com. In other international news, Tough Mudder quietly rolled out registration in a couple new countries this week. If you have ever wanted to do a Tough Mudder in South Africa or the Philippines, you are in luck. You can run the Tough Mudder full or half in Elgin, South Africa on September 15th and 16th, 2018. If you'd rather run in the Philippines, you can run the 5K or the half near Manila on July 21st and July 22nd. Check out the prices for South Africa and the Philippines. Just for context, I'm recording this in March 2018. To sign up for a full Tough Mudder on July 21st, what is that? April, May, June, 4 months from now. The Philippines race is in July, 4 months from now. So Tough Mudder Long Island in the U.S. would cost, if you were to sign up for that right now, would cost you $95. That's for the full. The half is $65, and the 5K is $69. That's right. That's actually correct. The Long Island half is $65. The Long Island 5K, 2 miles shorter, is $69. In South Africa, if you sign up right now, the full will cost you the equivalent of $63, and the half will set you back $33.75. In the Philippines, the half will cost you $55, and the 5K will set you back $32 dues. But check this out. In the Philippines, if you pay an extra 1,500 Philippine pesos or an extra $28, you can get the premium package, which also includes a towel and a 10-liter dry bag. So that's a total of $60 for the premium 5K in the Philippines, which is still $9 cheaper than a 5K over here. It's almost worth getting a passport, flying to the Philippines, renting a car, booking a hotel, and running the 5K. Plus, you'll have memories of your trip, and you saved $9. You won't save any money. Sorry to ruin your fun. So South Africa and the Philippines bring the total number of countries Tough Mudder is in to 10. Can you name those 10 countries? I doubt it. I'll give them to you. They are the U.S., Canada, the UK, Germany, Australia, Ireland, Dubai. Dubai is actually the United Arab Emirates. New Zealand, the Philippines, and South Africa. You know what? They used to do Tough Mudder in Mexico. I don't know when they stopped, what year they stopped doing it in Mexico, but I know that was a thing. I wonder why Tough Mudder does not do Mexico anymore. I didn't even mention the best part about South Africa. Buried in the South Africa Tough Mudder website is this. I'm going to read from their website. Tough Mudder South Africa is considering hosting the first Toughest Mudder event in Africa in 2019, but will depend on the level of interest from the local OCR community. To support the launch of South Africa's Toughest Mudder, please click here to pre-register. South Africa has a strong OCR scene. It would be great to have a Toughest Mudder in South Africa next year. I mentioned Merrell earlier. Next week, we are giving away another pair of Merrell trail running shoes. If you would like to be eligible to win a free pair of the Merrell Agility Peak Flex 2 E-Mesh or the Merrell All Out Crush 2.0s, text the word TOUGH to the number 22828. That will subscribe you to our newsletter and make you eligible to win. You can also subscribe via email. Check our show notes for those directions. Before we talk with Corinna Coffin, let's read some iTunes reviews. First review comes from the U.S. from SGA Spartan. SGA Spartan writes, "All things Tough Mudder, we get it. 5 stars. Excellent podcast for Tough Mudder. This podcast has very professional content and is put together in a very professional way. Doing a podcast myself, I can tell Will devotes a lot of time to this by how informative and the quality of it all. You would almost swear Will works for Tough Mudder with all the insight he has and all the news he brings. Hoping to do my first WTM this year. Learning a lot so far. Keep up the good work." Thank you, SGA Spartan. I don't know which OCR podcast is yours, but I would happily give you a shout out. Shoot, I would give Joe DeSena's non-OCR podcast a shout out when he leaves me a review. SGA Spartan, thanks for the kind words. I do spend some time on each episode, but I do not work for Tough Mudder. If I did, I wouldn't be able to call shenanigans when I see fit or talk about secret info that people leak to me from time to time. willhicks@gmail.com. Thank you, SGA Spartan. Next review is from an email I received from Ryan Bartley. Ryan writes, "Hey there. I started listening to the podcast about a month ago. Started from the beginning. It's amazing. Like binge listening to an amazing show that you can't get enough of. Love the stats and season updates on all the big races. Keep up the great content. It's given me a good feel for how awesome this community is. I've always done various OCR events yearly. My last Tough Mudder was in 2013. This podcast has inspired me to come back. I'm signed up for Toughest in Michigan, Tougher in Toronto, and am seriously contemplating WTM in Atlanta. See you out there, Ryan Bartley." Ryan, thank you for that note. As I record this, we are 71 episodes in. The average episode is an hour-ish. So you just listened to about 70 hours of the show, or almost 3 straight days of audio. That is awesome. If you are a new listener, you don't have to start at the beginning like Ryan did. It's not like Game of Thrones. You can jump in whenever you want. But that's awesome, Ryan. Thank you. And I'm glad to hear you are coming back to Tough Mudder, and that you're doing it because of our podcast is amazing. I will be at Toughest Mudder in Michigan, so be sure to find me and say hi while we're there. Thanks again, Ryan. If you'd like to be a part of the show, like Ryan and HGA Spartan, you can leave a review on Apple Podcasts too. Just open the Purple Podcast app on your iOS device and search for Tough Mudder. We're the first one that pops up. Click our logo and scroll down to write a review, and I will read it on a future episode. We are literally on the doorway of 100 reviews in the U.S. Apple Podcast Store. Who's going to get us there? This is the week to leave a review, fellas, ladies. Corinna Coffin is the women's reigning champion of Tough Mudder X, or TMX, the 1-mile race with a combination of obstacles and functional fitness workout stations. She's a member of the Tough Mudder Pro Team and will compete at all 3 TMX races this year, culminating in her defense of her title at the TMX Championships on June 8th in Virginia. Her first TMX race will be March 25th at TMX Sacramento this weekend, which you will be able to watch this summer on CBS. It's time to talk with Corinna Coffin. Let's go to the phones. Corinna Coffin, thanks for being on the show.
Thanks for having me, Will.
Corinna, you won the first ever TMX last year with a time of 14 minutes and 56 seconds. Congratulations.
Thank you. It was cool to have a new format obstacle course race, so I was excited to be part of the first one.
How did it feel seeing all the different type of athletes at the start line?
That was probably one of the coolest things about the 2017 TMX race, because I was not expecting Tough Mudder to invite all of these different athletes with totally different backgrounds and get them all to compete in this event. So I've talked about this before, but I was feeling pretty confident heading out to the race. And then when I got there that morning, seeing all the American Ninja Warrior stars and really big name CrossFitters, and then of course some of my friends through the OCR world, it was really intimidating. I'm not gonna lie. I kind of, my hopes were a little bit crushed upon arriving, and I was like, it'll be fun. It'll be really cool to compete with everyone, but I'm probably not going to do as well as I anticipated now seeing who my competition is.
It seems kind of obvious looking back, but at the time we were like, who's going to win? Is it going to be a Ninja Warrior? Is it going to be a CrossFit guy? Is it going to be an OCR guy? Like, we didn't know how it would go.
Yeah, it was totally, I mean, I think everyone had like one aspect that they were really confident about, and then like the Ninja Warriors, they were like, okay, like these obstacles are like, oh, they look fun. This is my jam, nothing crazy hard. And then the CrossFitters, like, what's a couple obstacles? Like, this is what we train on a daily basis, and we train a lot heavier than this. So like the obstacles will be easy, the fitness zones will be easy, and then the obstacles will just be, you know, a couple things we have to overcome throughout. And it was crazy how none of us really knew. I think we all kind of feared the other in a good way. It was like a respect. We respected each other and the backgrounds that everyone came from. And I don't think anyone had an idea. Like you said, it's easier in hindsight, but I don't think anyone had an idea of who was going to come out on top.
That's at the regular Tough Mudders. They like to say, when's the last time you did something for the first time? And like everyone out there was doing it for the first time.
Oh yeah. Yeah. And I think, and it was funny because we all walked, like all of us athletes, went through the course walkthrough. And I think a lot of us were pretty, at least intimidated by one aspect or the other. Like I know some of the smaller athletes were like, how heavy are those sandbags? Like, and how taxing are the sandbag clean going to be, and the pull-ups, you know, especially if you don't have a good kip or something. And I think some of the cross were very intimidated by some of the obstacles. Because I'm not going to lie, when you have anything suspended over, you know, or suspended in the air over a body of water, and they're like spinny things, it's just like, okay, well, am I going to end up in the water and then, you know, ruin my chances of completing the course and or not? So it was, I think there was this element of fear, especially on an open course that no one has touched really yet. So that was kind of fun to do the walkthrough with everyone. I think, and then we had like an hour, I think, to practice the obstacles and go through some of the course before we had our first qualifying heat. So it was pretty fun.
What was that practice like? Like playing on obstacles with Jessie Graff from American Ninja Warrior and.
Yeah, and honestly, I had Jessie down as I had totally had her pegged for winning this thing. I was like, oh man, like Jessie's here, because I look up to her, I admire her, and you know, all the things that she does, and she's just incredible. So I figured this would be right for Allie. I think the practice round was totally necessary to get all the, at least for me, I know I always have this like self-doubt before races, or I doubt like my ability to do something, especially like an intimidating obstacle. And I kind of needed that hour to just like see some people, you know, watching from the other competitors, like learning from what they're doing and kind of taking that in, and then finally getting, you know, the nerve to try something out. Especially I think it was over, you know, those water obstacles where, you know, you fall in and then you're wet before your first heat, and, you know, you're kind of lessening your chances of success. So I know that had an element to it where it was like, we're not just going out there to play. It's like, now we've got this competition and we all, you know, really want to do well. So for me, it was building up the confidence in my ability to, cause, you know, it'd been a while. I think it's been almost probably 9 months or so since I'd really touched an obstacle since my last obstacle course race. And that was in early September the year before. So it was definitely, it definitely felt a little foreign, but like you said, once that hour was up, it was like, okay, it's go time. I built up all the confidence I hopefully will need for this race.
So you were doing really well in the race. You were leading, and then 3 obstacles from the end, you had shoe problems.
Had a shoe issue there. It looks like her shoe was starting to slide off, and she had to put it back on.
Yeah, she stopped to adjust it a little bit, and I'm wondering if that's bothering her, if she realizes she's coming up now to leap of faith, where she's definitely going to have to run and sprint and probably needs a shoe.
What happened with your shoe?
And so that was Cassidy and I were pretty neck and neck the whole race, which obviously we were divided into heats of 10 beforehand. So like in the qualifying heats. So no one in my heat was like super close, like in terms of just pushing me. So I wasn't really, I was kind of, all right, got to save some energy for the championship heat. And so, yeah, having Cassidy, having like the top 10 do this championship heat and Cassidy right there with me, I knew it was going to be a battle. And I was on my last rep of the shoulder to overhead on the sandbag, with the sandbags. And I decided on my last rep to like drop the bag behind me and continue running forward instead of dropping in front and then jumping over it or something. And I had this little, ledge kind of on the back side of the heel of my shoe, for like gaiters or something. And when I dropped the bag behind me, it clipped my heel and took the heel of my shoe off. And so, okay, well, shoot, got to slide it back on. And it was not going on. And Cassidy had like 3 more reps. So I was like, F it, I got to just keep going. So I kept running with, just the heel of my shoe off and went into that obstacle, that slant wall. And I think I must have jumped off like with that. It was a really bad launch from the ground onto the wall. And I, didn't reach the ropes. And I found out after the fact that Tough Mudder like pulled up the ropes about a foot for us girls, and the guys too, for the championship heat. And so I just barely, missed the rope and it came back down. Luckily I was able to jump over the water instead of fall in. So that helped me a lot.
So yeah, you ran like the last 2 minutes of the race with one shoe and one sock, kind of.
Yeah, no, I decided after that I couldn't afford to fall, to do that again. So yeah, chucked the shoe and then Cassidy and I were pretty much neck and neck at that moment. So it made for a really exciting and dramatic finish. But yeah, I was able to edge her out just by a couple seconds.
So you had the lead going in after the last obstacle. You had the lead, and it was just a sprint to the finish. And that final run had a turn. And as you were going around the turn, you kind of looked over your shoulder for a second to see where Cassidy was.
And you see Corinna there looking over her shoulder, corner eye, like, where is Cassidy? Because the last thing you want to be happen is to be out sprinted at the finish.
Could you see her? Did you know you had won right then?
So it's funny because that brought me back to like my cross country days and like the finish where you just really want to kick and you're just not sure how much you have left in the tank. But, gosh, having that kind of format where, you had spectators just cheering you on from either side and like it being the home stretch. Oh my gosh, they definitely gave me the last little bit of energy I needed to, to edge her out. But gosh, I knew she, I think when I turned over my shoulder, I see she wasn't like gaining on me. But you never know. I never want to count anyone out until across the finish line. And I don't think it really hit me, until I was about a foot away from the finish line. Like, oh my gosh, I actually won this. Cause I feel like, especially in my, with all my experience in obstacle course racing, second place was definitely like my thing. It was like, it was always second or somewhere along the podium, but first was, it was definitely a little bit more rare than a second place finish. So it was really cool to just finally be able to like, to come away with the win on such a big race. So, but I knew Cassidy was going to be a hell of a competitor, and she will continue to be for this year's races too. So it'll be fun to see her again.
What were the emotions like crossing that finish line?
Oh, it was pretty unreal. Like, it's just such a big race and the stakes were super high. I mean, to have Tough Mudder, put on a race and have $25,000 on the line, like that was just really cool. But it was also just, like I said, how many people had come out to just spectate. And it was such a fun spectator race. Like, it was like, I know I enjoyed watching all the other heats go and the guys go too. So you kind of just want to be on your feet all day. Like, you were like, you can't go home until I've seen everyone compete, because there was so much excitement. Like, it was, okay, who's going to get hung up where? And the obstacles were, I love Tough Mudder because they have such, their obstacles are just really exciting. Like, they don't just have an obstacle just to put an obstacle in to count it off as like, another obstacle on their course course list. It's like, it's intentional, it's fun, and it gives this kind of like thriller to the race and like, oh, am I going to make it or not? So it was just really fun to watch. And I loved having everyone else there, like waiting till the end to cheer us all on. So the atmosphere was incredible. Probably the best I've ever competed at. So it was really cool.
You mentioned the $25,000 prize for first place. Did you buy anything big or put it in the bank, pay some bills?
No, it's definitely in the bank. I would love to make it through grad school without having to take out any loans. So right now I've successfully been able to do that, and I have one more year. So definitely, I'm definitely a saver. I don't. I'm not a big spender, so that's probably good. That's good going for me.
Another big win for you last year was Steve Austin's Broken Skull Challenge on CMT. I heard your fellow TMX champion Hunter McIntyre kind of made you go on the show.
Yeah, so he, so right after TMX, and actually I think it was at TMX, but it was probably the next day, and he was like, Corinna, like, Cassidy's the reigning champ right now of Broken Skull, and like you just beat her in a short course competition, and he's like, you could do the same thing at Broken Skull. And I think I don't know, I've seen it in the past, and I never felt like that was really my kind of like competition, doing the head-to-head stuff. And so I was just like, you know what, I think I'd always just, just kind of figured I would never do something like that. And then, he kind of talked me into it. And I think, he was like, he's like, I'm pretty close with the producers. I'm going to have them call you tomorrow. So I was like, yeah, okay. And they actually did. And so I was like, oh my gosh, I guess I really have to go through, with this application process. So I did. And I had a pretty, I don't know. The Skype interview for the show did not go as well as I was hoping. It was just like pulling teeth trying to get me to like say stuff. I don't know. I just felt like they were looking for a type of personality that I wasn't. And so when I got off the call, I was like, all right, well, that went great. Like not. So I was not expecting their call. And then they did call me back, and it just happened to be, during the summer when school hadn't started up yet. So I really wasn't doing anything. So I was like, all right, I guess I'm going. So yeah, it was quite the experience for sure.
What's the hardest part of the show? Is it the strength stuff or the wrestling stuff or the Skullbuster obstacle course at the end?
Yeah, I mean, that's a good question. Obviously you have to do well in the challenges to even get to the Skullbuster. So, I think it's just hard to, I think the hardest part for me was the emotions, like all throughout the day, because you are constantly like, it's not just, oh, we're going to do a challenge now, and then you guys have some downtime. It's like constantly with the filming and the production of it, you're walking on to the next challenge, and then you have to line up and then pretend, like walk out on the course against your competitor, pretending that you're about to go. And they get the shots, so you're like your heart is just beating on your chest, and then they cut, and then they actually let you rest, break for 20 to 30 more minutes, or you have to interview, and so it's just, there's so much stuff revolved around one challenge, and so you never have the sense of calm, like between challenges, to really settle down. So I was always on edge, at least for me. I'm talking, I guess, just from my own experience, but I never felt like felt like I was in competition mode. And for, 3 competitions throughout the entire day, because it definitely took a long time to do all the challenges. It was just really exhausting. And, but I guess in a way it kind of fuels that adrenaline, that continuous adrenaline, really fuels you through the challenges. But it was definitely like the challenges total probably took, I don't know, less than 20 minutes, right? Each, like combined, all 3 of them combined, but it took a whole day of production and everything to do it. So I guess it was just more tiring than it might have even looked on camera.
Do they film all your stuff in one day? Like you were only there for one day filming?
So they fly you in like the day before, and then to do all the medical checking and everything, and then they put you in a hotel room, and they take your key, and you can't leave because they don't want anyone to like, they don't want to keep tabs on everyone like leaving and going, which makes sense. But so you're like just hanging out in your hotel room from 4 p.m. through the rest of the day into the next morning, and then they drive you out to the ranch. And so we were there. We filmed all 3 challenges that day, and the intros and everything. So it was a long day. And then the next day was when you did the Skullbuster, or like whoever won did the Skullbuster.
So to win the show, you had to beat Cassidy Watton's time on the Skullbuster. You'd already beaten her that year at TMX. What was your confidence level going into the Skullbuster?
Yeah, so I don't know. So that's, yes, I had that confidence coming from TMX, but it's also a totally different course. And I think with something that, something that you watch on Steve Austin's episodes, the Skullbuster, the way the production is, it's a really intimidating course. And, from that Heartbreak Hill to like the rope climb at the end, and then you never know what kind of challenges he'll throw in there. And so, having watched some episodes before and not quite knowing because they hadn't released any of the episodes from that season yet, like not knowing what the course is going to look like, it was definitely intimidating. Not like more so just what the course was going to be, and less so like beating Cassie's time or not. I just knew that, hey, I need to run this course, and I need to run it as fast as I can, and I need to not make any mistakes. And so I wasn't really thinking like, oh, beat Cassie's time. It was just like, do what you can and like as fast as you can and don't mess up. And, when you just we got one walkthrough of the course, like they were like, okay, on this obstacle, this is like what you need to do. You need to come off this way. You need to complete this obstacle like this. So, you are allowed that time to okay, like this is how I would do this obstacle, like run it through your head, and then you're driven to the top of the hill, and then 3, 2, 1, and you go. And so it's in a way it was good that, like, I guess when you can't really try out an obstacle beforehand or see how, like, I don't know if you remember it, but it was just kind of like the balance section where you leap from one of the boards to the other.
Sure.
Like, I don't know why that intimidated me so much, but I was like, well, I don't know how hard that is. Like, some people sometimes in the show, like, they make the balance section look super hard, and like the last thing you want to do is fall off and then have to restart it. That takes up so much time. So I was kind of nervous about that, and I kept trying to get glimpses of the course, like as we were filming the challenges, just in case I got there. I was just like, oh, is that the course down there? Everyone was like, you can't look. Like, all the producers were like, all right, can you get away from the course? I was like, I'm just peeking my head around. But yeah, I think the course more than anything is the more intimidating factor, or the most intimidating of everything there.
So you beat Cassidy at TMX and you dethroned her at Broken Skull. Do you guys have a little rivalry, or what's your relationship like?
Yeah, no, it's definitely, I mean, I've known Cassidy for a long time now, and we both lived in Florida for a little while when I was working with Battle Frog. So we definitely like hung out then, and we know that like both of us are definitely strength-based athletes, and we always have been kind of from the start. And so I think we kind of bonded over that, knowing that neither of us were going to just run, 15 miles as our training. Like we would much rather be lifting heavy stuff, and we love when the obstacles are more strength-based. So we definitely shared that kind of bond in all throughout all of our obstacle course racing. But yeah, that being said, I think she made this comment, or I don't know if she posted it, but she was like, you've taken a lot of money from me this year, Corinna. And it's true. So, I can't blame her for having any saltiness toward me. So, I'm sure now that we've got another big TMX race coming up this summer, I already know she's training hard. I'm training hard, so it'll be a good showdown. And then there's a bunch of other athletes out there that are training their butts off too. And there's a lot. There may have been, just through the selection that Tough Mudder chose for the championship race last year. there's going to be a totally different group, I think, at this year's race, just because there's going to be people who qualify from Sacramento, people who qualify in Miami, and these people probably train obstacles and, heavy lifting all the time. So I think the competition is going to be even tougher this year for sure.
What does your training look like for TMX and Broken Skull? How many hours a day or days a week?
Yeah, well, see, that's funny because last year I kind of took a hiatus from obstacle course racing, or so I thought. And so I got injured at the Spartan race in 2016 in September, and I fell on some single track and busted my knee and had to get stitches right on the kneecap. And so I was out for all the championship races. And so I was pretty bummed about that, but I was also like, hey, this is my time, and Battle Frog went under at the same time. So it was kind of like, hey, I don't feel obligated, or I'm not under contract to race a certain amount of races. And as far as I'm concerned, when January hits, once 2017 comes around, I'm not going to be under contract for anything. And it'd be kind of nice to do just whatever I want and whatever I feel like doing with my fitness. And so at that time, it was just CrossFit was what I was really loving at the time. I was tired of trying to balance this whole endurance athlete with a strength-based athlete. It was just really hard to get stronger, but also faster. And I felt like I was constantly working against myself in training. I need to get faster, but I need to get stronger, but I like doing CrossFit. So I want to keep doing this, but I still keep my endurance. So it just was always back and forth with me. And so I had just moved to Boulder, Colorado in the fall or the end of the summer. And so I was so we had a pretty good shot at making regionals with the group that we had at our gym. So I was just I'm going to focus on CrossFit, follow the competitors training at this gym. And so we made it to regionals, and I think that was last May. And I'm pretty sure TMX was in June. So I really was just following our team training. I mean, we were doing a lot of it, and I was coaching at the time too. So I was in the gym a lot. I was training probably 3 hours a day, 2 to 3 hours a day, but I had 2 active recovery days. So it wasn't 7 days a week or anything, but it was very specific to my CrossFit. And so when I found out I was invited to do the TMX race, I really only had about 3 or 4 weeks notice before the race. So I started incorporating, I'd been running quite a bit, in my workouts, nothing more than a couple miles, but it was all 400 meters or 800 meters at a time. But I think that sprint work really helped, kind of simulate the running between obstacles, and then come back to the gym and do, some heavy lifting. So it was definitely very similar, but I wasn't thinking, TMX training at the time. Although before the race, I was maybe I should try some sandbag cleans, and they are totally different than barbell clean. I will say, I think some people aren't aware that they're very different, and sandbags are just really lumpy and they don't go up as smooth. So it definitely required some practice. But I think I just kind of got a little bit lucky, or at least, I think it just really suited my training at the time with just whatever CrossFit stuff I was doing. So I will say I really didn't train that much for TMX. And then for Broken Skull, like I told you, I got a call that I was actually going probably 2 weeks before I left for LA to film. And so I was just doing my CrossFit training, and I was just continuing on. So yeah, I mean, this year it's different, right? Because I knew that Tough Mudder was going to have a series of TMX races this year. I didn't know how many, but I knew that was definitely going to be a thing. And so, in the back of my mind, I'm like, okay, I need to make sure I'm doing a lot of running. I need to make sure that I incorporate these movements into my training. So that being said, I'm hoping to go, I'm in Utah now, and I'm hoping to go on a team for regionals again this year. We're looking pretty good with 1 week left of the Open. And I've been just following my competitors training at Salt Lake City CrossFit, which has been great. Justin Dixon's our head coach, and he does a great job of that. And he just happens to be putting a lot of running in lately, like high intensity interval running. So I feel pretty good. I've touched a sandbag a couple times between now and then, but we'll see how this race goes. It's nice that we have a lead up to the championship this year, so I know, okay, I need to work on this and this before June, instead of all of a sudden the big finale coming up and then saying, okay, I'm either well trained for this or not. So that'll be really good to gauge where I'm at.
What does your nutrition look like? What do you like to eat?
I love to eat. I grew up with 3 brothers, and they can put some food away. So I just kind of joined them, just my love for food. And I've got a big appetite, which my mom loves to point out. And so I eat everything and anything. I don't follow any specific diet. I did try, my boyfriend he does nutrition coaching and does a lot of macro count tracking with his clients. And so he helped me out and made me a little macro plan a couple months ago. But I followed it for like 2 months, and I think it was just eye opening to see what I was eating, like just from a macro standpoint, without even knowing, because I knew that the content was good, like the foods I was eating were really good, but I had no idea how much protein I was getting. I had no idea if I was eating enough carbs to sustain, my amount of energy expenditure. And then I had no idea I was eating so much fat, like healthy fat, but I didn't realize I was such a fat, loving person, I guess. So, once I figured out and started tracking like what I was normally eating, we kind of, changed up some of the numbers, and I had target goals to hit. And I enjoyed doing that. And I felt like I got a good sense of where I needed to be on a protein level, on a carb level, on a fat level. And so, I stopped tracking once I kind of got a good idea of that, just because it kind of takes the fun away from eating sometimes. And it's not like I was trying to lose weight or gain weight or anything. I was just trying to see where I was at and then optimize my performance. So, so now I don't do anything like special with my diet, but I have a better awareness of what I'm eating from a macronutrient level. And but for me, it's more like quality, right? It's I look at food as medicine for everything. Like, I get a cold or I want to make sure I stay healthy, especially in this high time of competitions. And so, like, when I'm at the starts, right, how many fruits and vegetables can I get and pack into my day, as well as hitting all my other big macronutrients. But I'm definitely very, very plant conscious of my diet, and really love getting in a lot of the healthy plant foods. So, because I believe that's where the magic is in a lot of things in health. So, but yeah, I don't follow anything specific. I love bread. I love bacon. I love, I'm not like anti-carb or trying to become a fat adapted athlete. It's just, it's nice to be learning about these things in school too. And especially from a sports nutrition standpoint, because that is my concentration here at the University of Utah. So it's just it's nice to be learning it and living it and applying it in my sport. So
you mentioned your 3 brothers. Tell me about growing up with 3 brothers. Did that contribute to who you are?
Oh yeah, for sure. I loved it. It's I was telling someone about this the other day, but it was just always trying to keep up with the boys. And I look back now and I'm like, oh yeah, I guess that wasn't totally normal. But like my mom, I don't blame her, right? Because she's got to drive to she'd have to drive to 4 different soccer practices or 4 different, games. And so she just put me on my brother's teams. I have a twin brother and then a brother who's he's like almost exactly 12 or a year older than us. and then another one who's 3 years older than me. So my twin and my middle brother, I guess I should say, the 3 of us were on like the same sports teams all growing up. My mom would just sign me up for the boys team, and she'd just tell me to run faster and be tougher and shove back, and so it was really good. It was really good for me in terms of sport, just to learn to play a little tougher, try to hang with my brothers, try to hang with the other boys, and not be pushed around just because I was the only girl out on the field. So I loved that. I mean, looking back, I think that was really just a really strong point in my childhood and development in sport, and my love for doing all types of sports and having that kind of competitive mindset through everything. So they definitely, at first it was, some people were like, well, if your brothers, it's just kind of like you just kind of settle for knowing that they're going to beat you. But I think I had a really fun time trying to beat my brothers and, hang with them competitively. So it was a very fun childhood, and we grew up on a big horse farm. So we had a lot of space to do, all the fun things, all the exploring, all the, kind of everything you could ever want to do as a child. So it was great. We were very close then, and we're all really close now. We're just spaced out around the country. So when we all get together, it's a great time. And, I think we can all still bond over sports and athletics and just being, just being outside and just doing stuff, right? Not just sitting in front of the TV.
What do they think about you kind of being a big shot on TV, speaking of?
They definitely don't let my head get too big. They put me in my place all the time. So I think that's great. They're great. My twin is in the military, so it's fun to, when I go visit him, run the oak course with him, or do beach runs and try to keep up with him. He's a beast. But I think it's just really nice to have that something to bond over like that, where it's trying to help each other improve. And he's not a big CrossFitter, so we take the barbells out in his backyard or garage area, and like teaching him the form of cleans while he kicks my ass on the oak course, and he teaches me how to do the weaver, more quickly. So, and then my middle brother, he's an engineer, and maybe squeezes in an hour-long workout before work 4 days a week or so. And he's just an animal. Like, you'd think, okay, like he's probably decently fit. No, he's incredibly fit. And I'm like, Greg, I called him up the other day. I'm like, you need to start training. Like, you need to train for this TMX thing. Like, you crush it. I don't know if you, Will, if you saw the Battle Frog College Championship when that was filming.
I saw several coffins in there.
Okay. Yeah. So that was 2 of my 3 brothers. And they were just animals out on the court. They made me, I was like, I know I do this all the time. I do these races, but these guys are just jumping in and crushing it. And so I called up Greg. I was like, we're going to train for this. So he's been putting in some training, and I'm going to get him out to, he's probably not able to come to Sacramento or Miami, but I'll get him to the Virginia one and see what damage he can do on the course there. But it's so fun to have a really active family and, like I said, bond over that stuff.
I have a daughter, and I'm her dad. I want her to be strong and tough and resilient, but at the same time, I want to protect her from the world. I don't want her to be hurt or damaged. And so I'm like, that's something I think about. Like, how do I, train her to be tough, but not. I don't know.
No, I think that's. You just have. She's the only one right now, right?
Well, no, I have a 5-year-old daughter and a 10-year-old son.
Oh, okay. Awesome.
So they fight with each other.
No,
but I'm like, stop fighting.
Yeah, no, I think it definitely helps them. I feel like it's totally different. If I was the oldest girl too, with 3 younger brothers, I feel like it's a different dynamic. So you obviously you don't have much control over the family dynamic. But I don't know. I think this day and age now, like there's so many wonderful female role models, you know, and right now, especially with all like Wonder Woman coming out and Tomb Raider, just all these lead female characters that are just kicking ass and, you know, showing girls, especially young girls, that like being strong is, you know, is a good thing. And I think a lot of people look up to those kinds of female roles now, as opposed to what it used to be, or maybe it was just, you know, didn't even exist. So I think that's really cool. But yeah, I think, you know, the fact that all these obstacle course races are coming up, and even CrossFit kids classes, I think there's just a lot of opportunities to get kids and young girls out playing in the mud, you know, and overcoming obstacles, like fears that they might have, and, you know, doubt themselves, right? That's kind of like that self-doubt that, you know, I was telling you about showing up to the TMX race last year. Like we all kind of we need to build our self-esteem and our confidence, you know, doing things, right? It's not going to happen just, you know, sitting on the sidelines. So I think if the more you experience those things, the more stuff you put yourself in those uncomfortable situations and environments, you kind of realize, hey, I can do this. And it's a pretty cool feeling. And I will say, like, the trend just keeps going. Like the more you do it, the more you believe in yourself, you know, whether it's in a race or kind of just in the real world. Right. I know it's just been huge for me. Is like, I just went to a ninja gym last night with some friends just to prepare for TMX. And it's crazy how I still get nervous, like looking at some obstacles. I'm like, I don't know if I can do that. And then I watch someone else. I'm like, gosh, I think I can do that. And then I go and then you overcome it and you're like, okay, that wasn't so bad. So you really just kind of have to put yourself out there and give yourself those opportunities to learn from yourself and learn that you can do those things. So I'm sure she's a fierce little thing.
Oh yeah, she's got the personality. You know, you mentioned role models. You know, with your wins at Broken Skull and TMX, there's probably girls that look up to you right now as a role model.
I hope so. I mean, it's you know, it's crazy how I have received some messages from people, especially from Broken Skull, and I didn't realize how many people watch that show or how many families watch that show. And sometimes, like, a part of that kind of concerns me a little bit because there are...
It's a little salty.
There are aspects of that show where you're just like, yeah, that's probably not the best show of sportsmanship or just classiness, right? I think that was part of the show that kind of I was really a little weary about going on it for, because I know that, like, there's not this huge, unlike Spartan or Tough Mudder, or any of these obstacle course races where it's all about kind of, it's about, you know, it's a competition, but it's also about bringing others up, like, with you too, and showing that sportsmanship and winning in a classy manner, and then, you know, running back and helping out, you know, your friends, right? And so there's none of that in a type of reality show like Broken Skull, or where it's, you know, it's all about, it's competition, it's about coming out on top, and the loser goes down the road, right? So it's kind of, while our group, I think, filming, like my group especially, like we kind of had some bonds. Like, we were not supposed to really talk with the competitors or anything, so you don't really get to know them, but I think our group kind of broke the rules a little bit and kind of had more interaction than most of the other episodes. So that was really nice to kind of have at least an off-camera relationship, but you don't see any of that on the camera. And so for young girls watching it, like, yes, they can see some really great showing of athleticism, but at the same time, it's also, the camera decides to show, like, the derogatory words towards your competitor or something. You know, they pick something because it's got drama to it, and people like that from a show standpoint. And it's like, that's not who I am, and that's not how I want to portray myself. But you might have 20 interviews or 20 minutes even worth of interview material, and they pick the 30 seconds or the 10 seconds that you show a hint of competitiveness against who you're going against. So I don't know. I feel like there's definitely some risk in doing that, for me especially, like in doing that kind of show, because I did not, but the last thing I want to do is come off as some arrogant girl who just wants to win, So I know, like, especially like my parents, they weren't super thrilled about me doing this show. I'm not even gonna lie. They were like, yeah, like it's not the classiest show. I was like, yeah. I was like, but I was thinking maybe, like, I was, I can control what I say and what I do and how I do it. And, but at the end of the day, it's TV production and they can do what they want. So you do have to be careful with that. And, so I hope I did that in a manner that was, most respectful to my competitors and was role model worthy. But yeah, you never know what it's going to be like.
Let's talk about 2018. What is your focus this year? Are you training for TMX or Broken Skull, CrossFit regionals?
Yeah, so definitely right now, especially because the CrossFit Open is the first thing to pop up for the year, right? Because it started in February, and we've got one more week of it. So that's definitely like my my first priority, I'd say, in terms of just timeline of events. So I've been really fortunate to join Salt Lake City CrossFit, and we have 3 teams currently in the top 15. So and regionals this year is in Salt Lake City. So how cool would it be to have 3 teams and be on our home turf? So that's definitely a priority. I'm training for it. I'm following our competitors' training right now for that. So that's 5 days a week in terms of training. But then I also, now that I'm on the Tough Mudder Pro team and have the opportunity to do TMX Sacramento and TMX Miami and the championship in Virginia, that's definitely a very close second if I had to choose, in terms of priority, because and I don't think I necessarily have to prioritize one over the other, because especially since last year showed this, if I'm following my CrossFit training, it should go hand in hand with my TMX training. I might need to do some more sprint work or interval stuff on the track for TMX, and I can easily incorporate that in with regional training once we find out if we've qualified or not. But I think the cool thing is, I think there's a lot of us out there, a lot of us athletes who find us in this hybrid mode of loving obstacle course racing, but not necessarily putting in the amount of mileage and running time as the best competitors out there in the sport of OCR. And so I think TMX.
It worked last year for you, so.
Yeah, exactly. And I think a lot of people, I hope at least a lot of people, saw that and are like, hey, like I can still hopefully, find success in obstacle course racing and maybe and do well in these races, catered more towards the short course athlete, and continue my strength training or my cross training regimen instead of having to totally switch it up. Because you see a lot of really strong and really big boys and girls who are just that kind of athlete. They love the cross training, they love weightlifting, but they also love this OCR community, and I can't blame them. It's an amazing community. We still want to be a part of that, but we're not necessarily built for those 10+ mile races. So it's really cool that Tough Mudder came out with this new style race, and it allows people to do the type of training that they love, but also, sign up for a competition or two throughout the year that is suited to their strengths. Like I said, I'm going to incorporate more sandbag stuff. We know that we have the list of obstacles for at least this first TMX Sacramento race. None of them are especially difficult in terms of, like, I do box jump overs in my current training. I do pull ups, sandbag cleans, So I don't think it should be anything crazy. There's nothing totally new in there. So So we'll see how this first one goes. It'll really, I only have 2 weeks after the Sacramento one till the Miami one. So there's not a whole lot of, new training between Sacramento and Miami to kind of figure out how to get better if it turns out that, I've got a lot of work to do. But the good news is the championship is not till June. So I'll have some time to gauge where I'm at. And who knows, maybe they'll change the obstacles and fitness zones from race to race. So it could be totally different for the championship. I don't have the insight on that yet. So I kind of just got to keep doing my own training and just see where it gets me.
Have you heard back about Broken Skull yet for the year?
I haven't. I know that I'm not sure what their contract is like with CMT, to be honest. So I don't know what that looks like, and I don't think I'll know until I know that they'll film sometime in the summer. But I don't think they'll be in touch until then. So I kind of just have to, yes, I will need to defend myself on the Broken Skull or on the Skull Buster. So there are some things I can continue to do to train for that. But like I said, it's a lot of those training devices are in my regular training right now. So I'm fortunate to not have to totally switch things up from CrossFit to TMX to Broken Skull when that happens.
You mentioned the Tough Mudder Pro Team. You're a member of that Pro Team with Hunter McIntyre and a few other members. Tell me about the Pro Team.
So I joined them. Had been in talks with them from the beginning of the 2018 year, and didn't know what the TMX schedule looked like, because I think last year, shortly after their TMX race, I think they had quite a few TMX races on the schedule for this year, and then it turned out to be just 3. But they had that big championship again in the summer. But yeah, Hunter's on it, and Ryan Atkins, Lindsay Webster, and Allison Ty. So we're three Canadians, 2 Americans. It's great. And feel back at home, just like my Battle Frog days, where I was the only American with Claude and Marco. It was great. So it's such a fun group. Like Ryan and Lindsay, I've been with them from the start with Battle Frog, and so it's really nice to be reunited with them, because it's definitely been a little while since we'd all seen each other. And then Hunter's just such a cool athlete with being able to do everything from CrossFit and crushing the TMX to, World's Toughest Mudder. So he's really, along with Ryan, just their ability to switch between short and long courses is just incredible. So really cool to have those guys on the team with me too. And then Allison Ty, she's definitely more suited for, and Lindsay, they're both those distance athletes. I think Lindsay had fun at the TMX last year, but talking with her, she was like, yeah, I'm not going to do those this year. She's definitely eyeing up those longer races, and they're both ladies are they're awesome. They're so kind and generous and just really incredible athletes. So I think it's a really cool team, and I'm excited to get to hang with them a little bit more this year as part of the pro team. So I hope everyone at least comes out to one TMX so I can see them.
Let's talk about TMX Sacramento. As we're recording this, there is a 70% chance of rain for Sacramento this weekend. How do you think that will affect the race?
Yeah, I saw that too, but I wasn't sure if it had creeped into Sunday. I thought Sunday looked kind of clear, and that was when the TMX was going to go down. But you never know, and especially if things rain overnight, then in the morning you got some nice and slick obstacles. So that could definitely throw a curveball in everything. I know it's going to be hard. For a lot of people, rain plus obstacles makes for a very interesting setup and outcome. So yeah, you never know, but luckily, I hope we're all in the same boat. If it's raining, it better not stop raining until all the heats go. I know there's going to be, I think there's several hundred people signed up for the TMX race. So, we're gonna have a lot of heats, and I think it's just gonna be rolling all out through the morning, and then the championship heats around noontime. So yeah, weather can definitely throw a curveball at anyone's plans, and just gonna have fun with it. This is like these races, especially these open races. I mean, it really is to get your feet wet in this style of competition. And for me, it's trying to figure out what I need to improve on and how I need to train, for the real deal in the summer. So just have fun with it and see, play around on the obstacles if we're able to kind of, there's Funky Monkey, King Kong. There's definitely some fun obstacles mixed in there. So that should be really interesting.
The course is 1 mile long with 16 stations. Let's talk through them and then get your thoughts on each one before we go.
Okay, sounds good.
The first station is sandbag cleans, 15 reps.
Yeah, so Tough Mudder definitely switched up their approach this year. I think they're looking to do like a section of fitness zones into a section of obstacles, and then back to fitness, and then I think an obstacle or two. The sandbag cleans, being at the beginning of the race, it's interesting. It really is, because last year we didn't see the sandbag cleans until kind of like a quarter to halfway through the race, and it was a game changer here. So like people who were in the lead could totally have struggled on the sandbag cleans, and then that was the end of it. So to have them in the beginning, it's definitely going to wear people out on the obstacles. But it also, it might separate the group right off the bat. So it should be really interesting to see how people tackle this, if they're going to just go ham, right, and just 15 touch and go reps, or if they'll be a little smarter about it and hopes that it'll save their grip. So I haven't really decided what strategy I'll take yet, but I never really go ham out the gate. I always kind of hold back a little bit and save it for the second half. So that'll probably be my approach.
You're right. I didn't mention this, but last year it was one obstacle, one workout zone, one obstacle, one workout zone, all the way through the course. This year it starts with 4 workout zones, then 3 obstacles, and then it pretty much alternates the rest of the way.
Yeah, and I think it allows for people to separate themselves in the area that they are good at, but it could also really dig you in a hole if you're really good at CrossFit movements in the fitness zone and you blast through them, and then you have 3 back-to-back grip strength obstacles. You could really find yourself in an unideal situation. So you really do have to, I think, start out a little bit more conservative and see how you're feeling, quarter to halfway through the course, and then go from there, because the last thing you want to do is red line right through those workout zones and then have, be screwed for those obstacles. So it's definitely a different formatting, and it'll be really interesting. To see how that changes up the strategy.
After the sandbag cleans is the sled drag.
Yeah, so I remember that last year. They had, if it's the same weight, that was pretty heavy. I'm not going to lie. I think some people sat down for it. I'm pretty sure I sat down for it and just pulled. But yeah, it was pretty heavy, and it was kind of long too. I think it was like 50 meters or so. So yeah, good. I'm glad they've got the heavy cleans. They've got right into the heavy sled drag. So that's going to be a forearm pump right off the get-go.
Next workout zone is box jumps.
Yep, box jumps. So these are box jump overs. And there's obviously totally different strategies for this. You can jump up and step down, or you can kind of just do that Energizer Bunny thing. You just hop, 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 hop. And for me, it's going to be kind of, go fast but smooth, right? I don't necessarily need to energize your bunny through it all if it's going to kill my legs for the rest of the race. So kind of smooth is fast here, but be a little bit conservative as well. But yeah, these can definitely wreak havoc on the legs if you're not careful.
Next station is pull-ups, 15 reps.
So this will probably be a separator. If the sandbag cleans weren't already, I think the pull-ups, if you have butterfly pull-ups, awesome. But if you don't, you could definitely find yourself sitting behind the competition here, which, might be a good thing if you're looking to go more conservative into the obstacles and maybe make up time there. But the longer you're spending on the bar, that's time under tension, and your forearms are going to be pretty tired for those obstacles. So I think obviously the faster you move through them, if you have the kip, you have the butterfly, use it. And I remember breaking up my pull-ups last year. I think I did 10 and 5, just because it was right before Funky Monkey. And I think that was a good plan. So I'm not sure I would want to do 15 unbroken. I mean, that's easy for me, but I also want to play conservative. And like I said, I'd rather take an extra second or two on the pull-ups and make it through the obstacle than falter on the obstacle and then have to restart. So, but yeah, that's a good lineup right there. Those four movements will definitely separate the group right off the get-go.
After those 4, it moves into some obstacles. The next station is Berlin Walls.
Okay. This should be quick. Just jump up and over.
And then Trench Warfare.
Yep. So we've got the barbed wire crawl, I think, here. So depending on the weather, it might be one where you really got to watch the hands and try not to get them super muddy, which is hard, obviously, crawling under wire. So you might have a little strategy there to keep them dry.
Are you a crawler or a roller?
I'm usually a roller, but they told us last year that we weren't allowed to roll, so we had to crawl, and I'm assuming they'll probably do the same thing, so we might just all have to crawl.
After Trench Warfare is Hold Your Wood.
The logs don't look super heavy, especially if you're doing all the cleans and the other fitness zones. That should be fine.
Next obstacle or next station is Lunges.
Yep, so I think it's 15 lunges here. I don't know if I'm assuming jumping lunges will be allowed, and that's probably the way to go, is to get through those pretty quickly. Any type, any ground you can make up at this point will probably, be something you want to do. So yeah, I would jump through those for sure.
The next 2 stations are grip strength obstacles, just the tip.
Okay, yeah, so that's the ledge where you're hanging. Well, last year it was over a body of water. So yeah, you really got to use that fingertip strength. Hopefully your hands aren't wet here, or hopefully the ledge isn't wet either, because that could be an easy fall. But yeah, that was a little tricky last year. I know that they had like these metal knobs between these 2 ledges, so you had to transition from there, and they were really slick. So yeah, you definitely want to save some fingertip and forearm strength for that workout, or for that obstacle.
After just the tip is Funky Monkey.
Yeah, incline monkey bar to the spinning wheels. See, like those back to back, that'll be really tricky for people. I remember last year we had the just the tip, and then we had the sandbag cleans and stuff to kind of, to have a little break between obstacles. But those back to back will be really interesting. I mean, strategy-wise, if all the stuff leading up to these obstacles are really going to burn you out, you just really have to think efficiency and how to get through them quickly, but without taxing your forearms too much. So I know that the wheels got a lot of people last year. You saw a lot of people fall on those monkey bars going into the wheel. So I think it's just a daunting obstacle in the first place. I don't think there was, I did it twice, and both times were just as daunting as the first. So, yeah, it's just one of those separators. Like if you fall, you're wet, first of all, and you're pretty close to the finish line. So I don't think you can afford to mess up on either of those obstacles.
The 11th station is bear crawls.
Yeah, this is a new one, obviously. So I think the rules are just, no forearms, just got to do hands and feet. So if your hands weren't dirty before that, they're definitely going to be after. If you have like a monkey kind of gallop, a bear gallop, I don't know if you're proficient at bear crawls, then get through this as quickly as possible, and try not to spend too long down in that position, because again, that's more forearms for sure. And
then you're taking your dirty hands to the next obstacle, Kong.
Oh, yeah. So, yeah, you're right. Dirty hands. I would try to find some grass before climbing up this obstacle. This definitely had a lot of falls last year, too. But, yeah, you're pretty high up, and you're swinging from ring to ring. I would definitely hand match on those on the hold, the rings and the ball, if they do have the ball in there. But, yeah, this could, if your hands are wet or muddy, it's a totally different story. So I would hand match and just try to use that momentum and get through it as quickly as possible.
By hand match, you mean you reach out with one and then you match your second hand to that first hand before you reach out for the next.
Just even if you're swinging from one to the next and not like as it's a big swing, they're pretty far apart. So even if you just hand match as you're coming over to the next one, I think that's a really smart idea as opposed to just totally relying on that one hand. Just match it for a quick second and then grab the other one. I think that just really helps because it's a lot of, especially if your hands are slick, like you're relying solely on that one hand to do all the work while you're swinging a pretty long time under tension because everything's super, they're pretty far apart, they're spaced far apart.
After Kong is squats.
Yeah, I think these are 15 squats to a medicine ball. You have to touch the medicine ball each time. Just fast and don't get any no reps. You definitely want to touch and have those hips fully extended at the top. But yeah, it's pretty straightforward.
After squats is Everest 2.0.
Which is just the ramp wall.
The warp wall.
So again, that'll be different if it is wet, but yeah, that should be pretty easy for most folks. 2 more stations, burpees. Yeah, I know. I love that they added the burpees here. I hope they do have some judges on this one because we've all seen some pretty bad burpees. So I'm pretty sure chest is touch the ground and you got to jump and clap overhead, but we'll see what the standards are. But yeah, we should all be pretty proficient at burpees at this point in the game.
The last obstacle is happy ending.
Yeah, wait, so happy ending, I think it's another slant wall, right, with just a slide on the backside?
Yep, exactly.
Okay, yeah, so like I said, hopefully that Everest 2.0, I think it has to be about the same height, right? Are they different? Do you know, Will?
Happy ending looks like it's taller, but it's an easier angle to climb up. Everest is more of a steep angle.
Okay.
Happy ending, I'd imagine there's still going to be ropes thrown down, but it's not as steep as Everest.
Okay. Yeah, gotcha. So that one should be, a hopefully happy ending for everyone. Hopefully no one gets stuck on it and becomes a bad ending. But that's happened to some of us at a Battle Frog race in the past. Remember they had were you at any of those, Will, where like the last ramp wall to the finish was super slick and steep and there were like ropes, but they were super short. And so I've definitely witnessed and been on the receiving end of really, really difficult slant wall before the finish, and it's really frustrating when that's the only thing to separate you. So hopefully it is a happy ending, in fact, but again, like you said, weather can totally change things.
If someone has an OCR heavy background, what are 2 or 3 things they should know before doing TMX? Like maybe they don't have a CrossFit background, but they want to try TMX.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think that they should try it just because it would be something fun, switch up the monotony of maybe some of the usual long distance races. But yeah, you should definitely know and be familiar with the movements, like especially the sandbag cleans. If you've never done a clean before, like you need to go somewhere, have someone show you what it is, and definitely rub a couple out. Like it's one thing for someone who does a bunch of barbell cleans to have a sandbag and I'm told to do that. But if you're not familiar with those movements, like that's a first. But then you should also practice, running and then doing some sort of running, like fast running, and then doing, a couple of those fitness zones, like reps from those fitness zones. Cause it's a total game changer, like just running long distance versus running short bursts and then having to do some sort of workload and then back to a short burst. It's a totally different kind of circuit training and would definitely be smart to do some of that and get the feel for that and know your limit. Because I think a lot of people might come out to this and just try to get through 15 cleans as fast as possible and still have the rest of the entire course and all those workout zones left and just totally redline. And if you don't know where your red line is, you don't know how far you can push it while still going versus when you're just your body's going to burn out, like you're going to be in for a rude awakening for the rest of the race. So just knowing how fast you can push it and not getting hung up on that too quickly, like in the beginning of the race, because it could be a long race for some people if they go out too hard.
Corinna, you have a strong Instagram game. How can people find you on social media?
Yeah, Instagram is probably where I'm most active. So CS Coffin 13 is my Instagram handle, and you can also type that in Facebook to find my athlete Facebook page. So I'm trying to be better about it. Like I'm trying to use the Instagram story stuff and post a lot, and hopefully, I will be leading up to the championship TMX race this summer. I'll be posting some fun training ideas and tips, and just let everyone know what I'm up to in terms of training. So feel free to tag along and follow that. And as always, I think I'm pretty good about responding to messages too. So if you guys have any specific questions, I'm always happy to answer as well.
Corinna, do you have any sponsors or anything you'd like to plug?
Well, I will say, so I'm sponsored by Altra Running, which is a shoe company based out of Utah here. And so if anyone's looking for, I haven't decided yet 100% what I'm going to wear shoe-wise to TMX. It might depend on the weather as well, but they've got the King MTs, which are their OCR shoe, to really good grippy trail running shoes, to just your regular road running shoe. And I've changed a lot of my friends' shoe game up since since being with Altra. And the quote I continuously hear is, "It feels like I'm running on a cloud." So if you guys are looking for a new shoe to try out, I love Altra. I would be happy to point you guys in any directions. So yeah, Tough Mudder and Altra. Those are my support systems this year, and I'm really grateful for both of them.
Corinna, do you have any last thoughts on TMX or TMX Sacramento?
No, I hope people come out and give it a try, and if anything, just have fun with it. And I would love to meet and see as many people as possible there. So I'll be in Sacramento, I'll be at Miami and Virginia. So look forward to seeing a bunch of you guys there.
Corinna Coffin, thanks much.
Thanks, Will.
Special thanks to Corinna Coffin for appearing in this episode. Well done, Corinna. Good luck this weekend at TMX Sacramento. Hunter McIntyre will also be competing this weekend at TMX. Hunter is the men's defending champion and was our guest last month. I expect Hunter and Corinna to both do well in Sacramento. There's a hot take for you. Leave us a review at Apple Podcasts and sign up to win some shoes. And I will see you next week. Go spend time with someone you love.